Hello, and welcome to Tech Cubicle on SAP. I am Darryl Griffiths, and this is my weekly 180, where I spend 180 seconds on the latest techie news that impacts the world of SAP. At the end, I'll pick my favourite to review in a little more detail in the cubicle. In my SAP techie news this week, IgniteSAP has an interesting article on the use of open source software within SAP landscapes. I think it considers many pros and cons in quite a balanced way. I particularly liked the section on risks and challenges of open source in SAP security, as this reminded me of the foiled supply chain attack that was found in the Linux XZ compression library, which I covered in more detail at the end of episode 12, and I'll put the link above here somewhere. That sort of risk is going to be extremely hard to mitigate. From Business Wire, customer experience company NICE appoints ex-SAP exec board member and CRO Scott Russell as the new CEO. To facilitate the changeover, the current CEO will remain in place until the end of 2024. Russell mutually agreed with the SAP Supervisory Board to leave SAP at the end of August, along with Julia White. An article on CIO.com discusses SAP's partnership with the appliedAI initiative, a German-based initiative comprising of joint ventures with companies seeking support for the application of AI to their business operations. The initiative includes accelerator programs, services, and specific solutions to help businesses adopt AI. The partnership should allow optimization of business processes with AI, making better use of data in the areas of finance, HR, and supply chain. The last section of the article picks up on the sentiment from a DSAG survey that shows 21% of customers gave SAP's AI strategy a minimum of satisfactory rating, which itself is not a bad rating, but the main point is that the customers were calling for the AI innovations to be available on-premise. See the link down below for more details. ERP Today has an article on herbal medicine manufacturer Bionorica and their move from ECC to S/4HANA with the help of data migration specialist SNP. The project involved accounting process changes, which added complexity and would have usually resulted in a two-phase project. But with the help of SNP's migration platform, known as Crystal Bridge Transformation, the project was able to be completed in a single phase in just 14 months. Further details can be found in the links below. From the SAP News Center, an article on how SAP Business AI can help the utilities sector through reliable, relevant, and responsible solutions. The article includes some sample use cases for AI, ranging from asset management to customer service to meter to cash. There's also a brief look at up-and-coming functionality such as AI-enabled visual inspection. In Azure, now generally available, Azure Backup can restore HANA database backups across regions using Cross-Region Restore (CRR). This new feature requires the Recovery Services Vault to have secondary private endpoints, which will exist in the secondary region. Also in Azure, public preview for Azure NetApp Files minimum volume size of 50 GB. This is down from 100 GB and allows smaller volumes to be provisioned, reducing costs for customers that do not need as much space. See the description for the links to both articles. Finally, an article on blocksandfiles.com discussing the imminent uplift in SSD storage capacity to 128 terabyte drives. The article suggests that by the middle of next year we should start to see 128 terabyte SSD drives, offering double the capacity of today's SSDs. It will be a while until storage array products with support for these new drives is seen in hyperscaler offerings, but it should enable a lower cost per gigabyte for large, storage-hungry SAP databases. My favourite item this week is the IgniteSAP article on open source use within SAP landscapes. I found the article overall to be an interesting read. One section where I found a conflict in my mind was when reading the section on support. The article says, unlike proprietary software which typically comes with vendor support, open source projects may not have the same level of guaranteed support. And to mitigate this potential lack of support, IgniteSAP suggests consultancies are advised to consider establishing long-term support contracts with third-party vendors that specialize in open source software. These can provide the necessary expertise and resources to ensure that open source components remain secure, up-to-date, and compliant with industry standards. Now, if you're paying for open source support, is it not the same as paying for a proprietary product? Why would a consultancy pay for support? I can understand an end customer paying for support, but a consultancy should be trying to make some margin on that support cost by having the skills in-house to support the software and include that as a charge to the customers, especially if it's embedded in a product that the consultancy sells. This also then gels well with the last line in that section. Ongoing engagement with the open source community can help to ensure that any issues are promptly addressed and that the software continues to evolve in line with the needs of the business. If a consultancy is paying for support of open source, why would they want to do this? This whole section is really confusing. Apart from the confusion, there is one aspect that has been overlooked and something that we see time and again in the industry. It starts with an open source project that gains significant momentum and adoption rates go through the roof. It becomes very popular. Something happens internally within the project that changes the outlook. The founders decide to fork the project to a paid-for version and cease development on the open source version. What happens next is that the license to the software gets snapped up by a large software vendor, which packages the product up and sells with support at a premium price. At this point, the open source version is still being forked by aficionados or consumers with significant interests, and eventually another open source project emerges with significant uptake and contribution. We then have two products with a common history, but one is open source and another is a premium product. As a solution architect, which do you choose? The premium product and open source project both have the necessary functionality for your needs, but there is a risk in both. The premium product could be mothballed by the software vendor if not enough customers buy it. On the other hand, the open source project could cease development for any number of reasons. Have we seen this before? Yes. Terraform is one similar example. Okay, the Terraform example is more complex than that, but it might turn out to be the same as my example. CockroachDB is retiring its free open source product. MariaDB is another example. MariaDB was forked from MySQL after Oracle bought the rights to MySQL. While the MariaDB software is open source, the continued development and support of MariaDB is backed by MariaDB Corporation, which is currently going through some very tough times. There is a possibility that MariaDB development could stall indefinitely. CentOS is another victim. Originally downstream from Red Hat until, in 2020, Red Hat terminated CentOS development. It's a tricky balance when choosing open source, and the landscape can change rapidly. That's not to say that open source is not profitable. An open source project can attract funding and revenue from different streams, such as offering a premium level of support, providing consulting, access to paid-for documentation and training, and also proprietary add-ons and customization. SAP themselves contribute to a vast number of open source projects through memberships and foundations, and more often than not, the reason is because SAP are consuming the open source software somewhere in their products or behind the scenes. So it's a win-win for them as they get to help shape the software and drive functional changes to benefit their requirements. Why is all of this relevant now? Well, we now have AI and open source AI models. Just this year, SAP has released its open source manifesto. Its promise to help the open source community to help SAP with its AI objectives. Is SAP the wizard behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz? As always, reference links are in the description, drop me a comment, give the video a thumbs up, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye bye. Hey, Maria, what should we call this database product we've just invented?